So with the release of Schumacher on Netflix, the new documentary about Michael Schumacher, we thought now would be a really good time to kind of look back on the driving films that we remember enjoying or that maybe like had a bit of an impact on our life.
And Owen, you're going to kick us off with your first one.
I picked Senna as my first film. I thought I'd get like one of the obvious choices out the way first, but also one of the best.
All-time greats.
How do you feel about being world champion?
It's not a bad feeling at all, is it?
It's one of the best documentaries I've ever watched. Everything about Ayrton Senna's racing career into like a 90-minute, really engaging, really well-paced documentary. That this film was probably the first time that I'd kind of found out about all of the glitz, the glam, the drama and the politics of Formula One, because it's got all of those team changes that he made. So when he went from Lotus to McLaren to Williams, and the way it kind of approaches those and talks about why he decided to move teams at what time. I remember finding that really interesting the first time I watched it, because it wasn't something I'd ever considered before. Like in the news and things, you hear about footballers getting bought and going to different teams, but the way that drivers assess the technical abilities of their next move, I found that really fascinating. And the way the film covers all the hype around Ayrton in Brazil, and how he kind of dealt with that when he was in his home race, and then how all the fanfare followed him basically everywhere he went. It's just, there's so many aspects of his career to fit into one little documentary, and I think the way it balances everything and brings it all together in one kind of unified storyline is just brilliant.
Rush.
This is an incredible battle between these two great drivers.
Next time I'll have you. No chance. You're just a party guy. That's why everybody likes you.
It has the feel of a Formula One event. Like, it is a drama about F1. It's just a brilliantly engaging film, and one of those films that even if you don't like racing, you're going to get into it through this film.
Did Apollo 13 as well, and just has this, he's got this brilliant way of capturing the drama in real life events and planting you right in the middle of it.
Yeah, I think what it does is it contextualizes a lot of how it felt to watch Formula One at that time. So if, like, I remember watching, and I'll always remember, probably not as well as you will, watching Daniel Ricciardo's first win at Monza live on TV, right? So in 20 years' time, when we watch the highlights of that, we're going to feel that kind of excitement a little bit and know what it felt like. And I can't associate a feeling with Formula One in the 70s like I do that. But like you were saying, the way that Ron Howard directs it when you watch older footage or archive footage of those races now, you kind of have a better understanding of how it might have felt and the intensity of those moments.
So for my second one, I have decided not to stick with realism anymore, and I'm going for a film based on a manga from the 60s, directed by the Wachowski sisters, and set in a fictitious land where racing rules.
Your son seems to be interested in only one thing. All he talks about, all he seems capable of thinking about, is automobile racing.
Speed Racer was the film the Wachowski sisters made after The Matrix, and it's kind of like the polar opposite. So where The Matrix is all dark and broody and all has like a green colorscape and it's all about like the realism of life and things, Speed Racer is just vibrant, colourful, over dramatic. It's got some like comedy moments, and it's all done in this like really exaggerated comic book style. So it's like visually it's an amazing film to watch, and it kind of has this weird dated feel that also seems timeless. Yep. Like everyone's wearing like pop art outfits all the way through. everything's bright orange, bright pink, or bright yellow. It's just a really stunning film, and it kind of follows a family who are trying to get into top tier racing. So the main character is the son, Speed Racer, and his brother Rex Racer has like a bit of an incident, and he's trying to like follow in his footsteps. But throughout all of that over-exaggerated racing style, it's still got all these weird little links to real life racing. So there's like a whole thing about corrupt contract talks and people race fixing, and then like talk of Grand Prix prizes that are up and above what you would normally get, which I kind of saw similarities to like the Triple Crown, where only one person's ever won it and other people are all going to get it as well. But it's just like 2 hours of fun, which every now and then is all I want from a film. And also it has John Goodman in, so it kind of ticks all the boxes. And it's just fantastic.
Well, I picked a relatively recent one. Well, I mean, Rush was 2012, but I've gone with Le Mans 66, or Ford versus Ferrari, as it's known, or dumbed down to in America.
Carroll Shelby, maybe? Lee Iacocca, Ford Motor.
I think what it is similar to Rush in that it's based on a true story, but fictionalized or dramatized. But it's not necessarily about the action on track. Like, there isn't a lot of racing in that film. It is more about the kind of struggles that go on behind the scenes and the kind of American powerhouse of Ford and how they convince them to keep the project going. But then you have like the romantic side of the Ferrari and the challenges they have of not being the number one. And yeah, again, it's hammed up a bit because, you know, of the dominance they had, and they probably weren't completely against each other. There were financial reasons they did it, blah, blah, blah. But I just think it does a brilliant job of showing kind of what was at stake, the amount of work that went in, and really, when you read about, like, you know, I read a lot of Wikipedia articles doing like work and research for work and you know, watching videos, and you might see the odd name pop up, but this really delves into those kind of engineers and what they did and their family life and yeah, it's just a good film.
Christian Bale's in it as well, isn't he? I find him very hit and miss. So the third one was actually the toughest one to pick because we like shared a list with each other to make sure there wasn't any crossover. And originally I just said the entire Fast and Furious franchise, which I don't think 20 years ago anyone would have thought would make it to 10 films. But that's where we are. So I had 10 films to pick from. And have gone for Fast 5, which I think is the best Fast and Furious film by far. In the first few films, he's a bit of a street racer, a bit of a criminal, and then all of a sudden he becomes the American James Bond. And Fast and Furious 5 is like the tipping point where it's billed as like the team's last job, and they're gonna rob this bank in Rio and then become free and leave America. And I think Vin Diesel like spends the next 5 films living in Croatia or something like that. But it's the one where it still has like a gram of realism, I would say.
Okay.
In that there's no scenes where someone crashes a car, flies through the air, catches someone, and then lands on another car.
Yeah. Then
there's no one like driving a car into a helicopter, and there's no one being chased by a submarine. They get a bit far-fetched. Yeah, the Fast and Furious films have always kind of just been fascinating to me because originally they take themselves so seriously. And they're like, yeah, we're a serious street racing film. And if you watch more like back to back, I think, yeah, definitely the first 4 all try and stay in that vein. But then 5 is when The Rock comes in and he's got all of these like really cheesy lines. And he basically only speaks in one-liners throughout the whole film. And the stunts start to get even more ridiculous. And it's still got that like good guy, bad guy vibe,
Yeah.
But it's sort of before the point when Vin Diesel is being roped into being this secret agent that goes around fighting crime families. So it's still just lots of racing through the streets, lots of talk of like undercover crime gangs, lots of really cool cars, lots of jokes about whether or not Japanese import cars are better than American muscle cars. I always fall down on the American muscle side because they're big and loud and cool. And it kind of all culminates with this insane scene where they drive a bank safe through a city. It's just like Speed Racer, 2 hours of movie magic.
Okay.
I dare say slightly more realistic than Speed Racer, but probably not a lot more realistic.
So I struggled to think of this one. And then I was going to go with something else. But then I remembered this film I watched when I was a little bit younger. And it's about this kind of like old classic car that a woman kind of spruces up, takes it to a racetrack, it becomes an amazing car, she brings it back to life.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a touching film. Do you know, does it ring any bells? Herbie Fully Loaded.
Oh, right.
I don't think I could really tell you what that film was about. Everyone knows what Herbie Fully Loaded is about. But the reason I picked it kind of harks back to the beginning of this podcast. I was like 9 when it came out. And it was the first time when, like, if we pulled up into a petrol forecourt and there was a Volkswagen Beetle, I'd be like, oh, that's like the car from Herbie.
Yeah.
Or like if there was one that was even in like the Herbie livery. I don't know why you'd ever get that kind of car, but if it was like that, I'd be like, oh, that's a Herbie.
Yeah.
And
I remember seeing new Beetles with the Herbie livery on quite a lot. I feel like that must have been an option.
I think it had a bit of a renaissance when this film came out in like the mid-noughties. But yeah, I think it is just important that you have, I guess, like Fast and Furious, but like silly films that are quite accessible to kids that are about driving. And you know, this one, no one gets hurt in this one, so that's quite nice as well.
But so that was all the films that kind of made it into our top picks of driving movies. What about you? We'd love to hear which car-related shows and films you like watching. You can let us know on Twitter, reach out to the show at Friday Formula, or tell us each of our individual picks are wrong by talking to me at Owen_Bellwood, and Will, you can be found
at Will Longman.
Please be kind.
And don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more, and head over to wherever you get your podcasts, type in Friday Formula for the full version of this podcast, and subscribe there for any more. Get them straight on your phone.
Formula One is back this weekend. We're returning to Sochi for the Russian Grand Prix. So while you're finding us on Twitter, please do let us know any predictions or reactions you might have to the racing action. We'd love to hear from. We'd love to hear them. As next week we'll probably be reviewing everything that goes on in Sochi this weekend. To be kept up to date and find out as soon as next week's episode drops, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. All that's left to say is thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a lovely weekend. Goodbye.
Goodbye.